Jazz age living, old fashioned sipping, pizzazz ain't missing, got the fat cats kissing. Let's bring the old age back.
So, a little, I guess a little preamble here. First off, welcome to episode 12.
Welcome to episode 12. Everybody.
Welcome to episode 12. We thought Doggy Juice, as I've been referring to him on all of the Instagram posts, Mike, was going to come to Sean's place, and that didn't happen at all, and that was definitely my fault. Lost in translation.
Exhibit A, the empty yet beautiful high back leather chair with a microphone and no body in it yet, but we'll get some, holographic projection in there for him on the post-cast editing.
Yeah, we wanted to keep it there, though.
I'm honored to be on here, guys. I'm honored to be on here, and sorry, the misunderstanding was definitely partially my fault. I'm not even living in Chicago at the moment, and honestly,
so we're close.
I told you guys pre 11 a.m. on a college basketball Saturday, I wouldn't even, if my mom called me with a family emergency, she wouldn't be able to get me over to her house. College basketball markets are quite busy right now, so.
So that's how much this episode means to you, viewers. Doggy Juice is taking time away from a family emergency to be here with you.
Exactly.
So, Mike, do you want to kind of give a little background on yourself? I'll give a little brief background here. I met you through the Sunday Punch co-founder, Mike Hamilton, and we actually did our first podcast with you about 2 years ago, which obviously put the idea in my brain, and it only took me 2 years to finally act on it in pure procrastination mode that I'm accustomed to doing, but so we did that. Mike actually told me about you and your sports gambling podcast, and I've been listening periodically ever since, and you know your shit. But if you want to give kind of your background and a little promo.
So you were actually one of my first guests ever, Adam. I think that was like episode 14 or something like that. And there was, like you said, 2 years ago. So I started the Doggy Juice Podcast in September of 2018. Basically, like that year in 2018 was a super exciting time for the legal regulated sports betting industry here in the United States. The PASPA was overturned in May of that year, basically opening the door for states to determine and figure out if they wanted to legalize sports betting. There was no longer a federal law that was preventing them outside of Nevada and some other carve-outs for some other states too. But states were able to choose, and obviously at that moment, I mean, I was into sports betting for years before then, and learned my way around that whole corner of the world and stuff for years, and I could see this opportunity coming up. So around the time of the PASPA law being overturned in that summer, I got the idea to do a podcast, a few other reasons too, but I wanted to start it before football season that year, and just it was more of a passion project, just taking it where I can go, so I started it. It was exciting, and it was just for fun, just to try and dish out winners, try and teach people how to think like a sharp sports bettor. It's not all about just picking a team right before kickoff and flipping a coin. I was trying to explain the math, and when you're laying minus 110 vig, you got to win 52.38% of the time just to break even over time, and it's hard. That's how people lose. So so I ended up making a career out of the whole thing. I'm actually an attorney, Chicago-based attorney, and moved into the industry career-wise. I worked for Bet Chicago, Bet Indiana for a year and a half. We were going to launch our sports book in Indiana first, and then COVID hit, and a bunch of other crap hit at the wrong time last year. Right when the Illinois launched sports betting that week. It's a week I'll never forget, March 9th. And then obviously we know 2 days later, Rudy Gobert happened, and the next Monday couldn't even go to a casino to bet. Yeah. So
I didn't know about that. I forgot about that timeline.
Dude, it was nuts. So I was there for the launch back in, it was March 9th on Monday. And it was supposed to be my 15 minutes, man. I got interviewed by ABC, NBC, and I got on.
Dude, that was your chance.
They did this they got me on the 6 o'clock news that day, just talking about the launch and everything, and made my first bets. They were taking videos and stuff. It was supposed to be my 15 minutes of fame. And then, so I was telling family, I'm like, hey, turn on the 10 o'clock news tonight. You guys will watch it. And then the 10 o'clock news happens, and this fucking COVID thing took over. And so they ended up not even, they condensed the sports betting bit to a 20-second bit and carved out my interview and stuff. And I was like, this goddamn COVID-19 thing, man, it's that no one's going to remember in 3 months. Is taking away
I was literally just thinking about that on my walk over, because I was listening to my buddy who will play on the outro. Rio Peterson has a good song called "The Puppet," and I was just like, it's crazy, like the talent out there, but you need your chance, right? You need your opportunity, and I wonder like how many just like, in addition to you getting crushed. How many just like musicians that were on the verge, they're doing live shows.
Right.
They're just almost there.
Record deals disappear.
Yeah. And it was just like, oh no, dude, like you're a live performer.
Venues
You were almost
cancel.
there, but
Crushing, man.
But sorry, I wonder that had to have happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah, dude. It happened.
They don't
my
know
stepbrother,
it yet,
the guy who does my podcast, my theme song, he lives out. My stepbrother, he moved out to L.A. in October of 2019. He's a professional musician, and he started playing live shows, and 3 months later, he's been out there since, and he's just been, what's it been now? It's been about a year and 3 months he's been there. I think he had 3 months worth of live shows. Now it's just it's fucked, man. It's just brutal.
What's the plan?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It's just wait for this thing to play out. Hope that
immunize everybody.
Yeah,
immunize everybody.
It hit everyone, dude. I had to cancel my damn wedding last year. I had even that Monday when I was at the casino. I was on the phone. My buddy Sam Podyanovich, he works for Nesson now. He used to be on like Comcast and stuff, but he got me on the phone with John Murray, who's the Westgate casino sportsbook director in Vegas, and he told my bachelor party was planned for the Final Four Saturday. I got the word from him himself that he was waiving the fees. We're getting VIP for the Final Four at the Westgate. Brutal. And I was, telling all my friends and shit, I'm like, guys, this is like the dream come true. And then 3 days later we had to cancel it, cancel the wedding.
Oh, you canceled it that quick? I would have still been. I would have gone up to like the last day.
Dude, we tried. Some of my buddies were like, "No, screw this shit. We're still going."
It's gonna trust us.
I was like, guys, like legally, I don't think we can go. We can break in and try and turn on the screens if you want, but.
Yeah, that had to be brutal. I think Mike told me that you've been to Vegas before for March Madness.
I actually never have.
First opening weekend.
I never.
You haven't.
No, that's my bucket list thing. It's funny that you mentioned that because a few years ago. That's my dream to do that, but now that I've got like seriously into the sports betting and stuff, that's my like I'm super busy that time, so I wouldn't like be able to like it's just my eyes on the markets the whole time, and so like that's why I planned it for last year for the Final Four where it's just 2 games, but if it's the opening weekend, I still want to do it, but it's just it'll be me in front of a computer freaking out and everybody else watching the games because I don't really watch the games, man. Like not as much.
Yeah, so to that point there, Mike, I think I'm certainly naive in this way, but you mentioned that this is a Saturday morning. Normally you'd just be, absolutely working from basically the moment you were awake, getting that first cup of coffee. Walk us through kind of like what a day looks like for you on an average Saturday, Sunday, where a lot of sports are on, a lot of stuff's going on. What is kind of your moment from like you brush your teeth, you sit down, and then what starts happening?
So it's changed for me now just because now I'm working in the compliance legal side for a sports book that we're looking to launch a play up. We've been on the news this week. It's been pretty nice. So it's I'm working on the operational compliance side for a book. So it's really going to change my process moving forward, and especially right now. But before this new gig the past couple of weeks, usually Saturday mornings and Sundays, before I'm even up like late on Friday nights. College football markets are it depends on the time of year and what market we're talking about and what sport, but really from college football season through March Madness, every Saturday, Sunday in the morning is primo busy time, and it's really most of the bets I lock in for football are when the bets are posted. 80 to 90% of my action is the week before the game even takes place. Okay. When the numbers come out. But sometimes, you get props that are posted a day or two or even the same day of the game. Those markets are softer. So those are ones that I'll attack. And then sometimes you get some line moves that are late that open up value. So it's just really monitoring the markets and that the time of year where it's college football and college basketball at the same time is the most busy time. That's where it's, I wouldn't even go to my own close family member's funeral at that point, just because there's too much going on. But yeah, no, it's busy. Yeah, but in the mornings, that's where all the action's happening before, especially on a Sunday NFL before noon. You guys know that feeling of being busy setting your DFS lineups and your fantasy lineups before noon. And when you incorporate sports betting too, these markets are moving pretty quick in the morning when all the public money starts coming in. So yeah, it's busy, man. It's every market's different, so it's really the answer depends on the time of year and what sport you're talking about too.
I think a lot of some of the more kind of casual betting, or just kind of yelling at friends that happens at sports bars, is who's going to win this game, right? Simplest bet, heads up, who's going to win. But if you don't mind, kind of walk us through some of the most common, like simplest to most complex bets that might occur or might exist on a given, let's just call it a college hoops day.
Well, yeah. So I always tell people this, like when you have those arguments in the bars, who's going to win a game. When you ask me like who I like in a game, my answer is always, what's your number? Because there's a number, there's some teams I just don't want to touch at all, but like there's always a number I'll bet on a certain side. So it's all, that's really what it comes down to is, if it's like the Bulls, for example, and they're playing, they're playing the Nets when the Nets have all three, and maybe the Nets are a bad example right now, but they're playing, let's say they're playing the Lakers at full strength, and there's going to be a number where I'm going to bet the Lakers. There's going to be a number where I'm going to bet the Bulls, and it's obviously going to be a lot of points. But getting your mind in that mindset, I think, is really what frees you for sports betting. It's about betting numbers and not teams. But yeah, so like in terms of like the actual process itself, it's busy. It depends on the sport, and I don't know if you like what specifics you want me to go into there when it comes to actually individual sports. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking like, hey, I predict, in your example, that the Bulls are going to win this game, and I want to get this many points going for the Bulls if the Lakers are favored. Versus like, what's a prop bet in the moment, and then I know in NFL betting you can tease bets like, okay, I'll give up 3 points at the line here to add to the over there. So I think there's got to be like infinite number of permutations for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, yeah. So there's a bunch of different ways to bet. Obviously, your straight bets on sides and totals is it's 80% of what, or 85% of what people are betting right now. Pre-flop bets too, although in play wagering is really picking up steam in America right now, and overseas in Europe, that's 70% of the handle is live bets that are after the game starts, and we're moving.
And that is like who scores the next touchdown kind of thing.
Well,
right?
well, no, that even that's sides and totals too, but you can get to that stuff, and that's what's exciting about the sports betting space right now is all this new technology is coming out there, and it's faster, and it's allowing operators to offer markets like that, next team to score. Obviously, those are smaller limits, and you're going to pay more juice, more vigorous on those. But those markets are available now, and those are fun to play, and those are softer markets. Those are beatable for sure. But
nice.
So sides and totals, your typical teasers, and I always tell people to steer clear of parlays unless they're correlated, because those are, just trust me, on the bookmaking side, they want you to play parlays and stuff. There's a reason why you're seeing all the parlay advertising and stuff. But yeah, it's so many different ways. What do you mean by correlated? A correlated parlay. So a good example of that would be, and some books won't even let you do these, and they guard against them. But let's say there's a low total with a big favorite. So let's say that the totals, like an Army game. Let's say Army's playing someone. And they're
call it Navy.
Yeah. Well, we'll say Army's playing like a team that's like a 2 touchdown favorite over Army, but the total's 40. And usually the rule of thumb is if it's less than 4-1. The ratio, the book won't even let you because it's so correlated. So it's so taking the points with Army and the under is correlated, because if the game stays under, it's more likely that Army's going to cover that 2 touchdown spread. And vice versa with the team that's favored over Army. Let's say it's Alabama favored by 3 touchdowns with a total of 40. If the game's going to go over, it's probably because Alabama's putting up touchdowns and scoring points. So that's correlated as well.
Like I told my, I'm one of those guys to flip the coin. I got a feeling, guys, and
well, that's fun. That's fine.
About the ones I get right, but I did call that Alabama game.
Oh yeah.
Dude, that team is so good.
Yeah, my brother texted me. He's like, "Should I trust you because you also picked the Bills to beat the spread and also the Bears to cover."
Which neither happened.
Yeah.
The
NFL to me, the NFL is a complete crapshoot. Like you never know what's going to happen. Like what's like one of the easier sports you think, like data wise, statistically wise, that you can kind of look and kind of accurately predict the most?
So yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. By far the hardest sport to beat is the NFL, especially when you're trying to beat the NFL on game day. The market's it's so much liquidity. Those lines are so sharp to begin with, but then they're hammered out and sharpened like a knife throughout the week. And so you're flipping coins in the NFL betting on a Sunday if you're trying to bet a game on a Sunday. But the easiest, is any softer market with less liquidity, really. So it's just, there's lower limits in those games as a result. So there is a trade-off, but obviously you have to get to a certain level for that to be an issue. And but my favorite for me is college basketball, namely in totals, especially in the smaller conferences with less liquidity, and there's less people betting into those games, and especially earlier in the year too. And it's kind of similar with college football because there's so many conferences and so many smaller teams. So for me personally, those smaller conference college basketball and college football is where I have my most success. But there's also if I don't do tennis handicapping, but tennis is also supposed to be very beatable with softer markets. But that's outside of what I do.
I never thought about tennis.
Yeah, and I was never thinking about tennis or
God, I would
cricket.
love to be hyped for like a Federer match.
Just losing it.
Yeah, you're just like at your buddy's place. You're like, dude, put on Wimbledon. Like, come on.
How are we not watching
Fed
Federer?
is playing right now. I need him to win by 2 games.
He's
It's
wearing
in the second set.
The pink headband is on. Come on now.
Nadal is wearing his capris. I bet that he wouldn't wear them this time. But
Next serve's an ace.
so there are lower limits because it's a softer market. It's like, I mean, I get like some of those I can't even believe people are betting. Like when I see like sometimes I'll go on the the websites and just take a look, and like some of these teams I'm just like, who is gambling on this?
That's
what
the thing. Yeah.
degenerate from
it is the
Valley
sharp
State.
guys. Yeah, those those just obscure Big South games and stuff. I mean, there's plenty of more degens out there now though too. There's especially with regulated betting,
Degens.
people are looking for action, and there's always the the Hawaii joke, but it's a total thing. You can talk to any odds maker in Vegas and stuff, but that's a total thing. The Hawaii games get massive handle because everyone's looking for that get out game. Try and get their money back when they've lost
at the end of the day.
every time. Yeah, that's same for basketball too. It's always that last game, so they get tons of handle on Hawaii games.
Jeez Louise.
I was,
you know nothing about the team.
Yeah, it's
No,
all
it's
emotion.
nothing.
It's all emotion.
That's when you're a true degenerate, when you're just trying to get out with
You're
the,
like,
with the
I don't know,
Hawaii
I
game.
got a feeling, dude.
Has there been an explosion in a lot of the sports betting? I mean, maybe these two are correlated because you have both the legalization within states, as you've mentioned, but also people just being home from the pandemic. I mean, we didn't have sports for a while there, or at least there was hesitation about what sports would go forward and how. NBA bubble being probably our earliest like solid example of a league or a sport taking this really seriously and saying like, we can find a way to do this. Has there been any way to kind of identify that during the pandemic there's just been a massive uptick in betting from home and your casual better?
Absolutely. No, the COVID-19 has changed. I think sped up a process that was going to happen anyway. Just moving more towards mobile betting and stuff. Like we're already moving in that direction. I think it's 4 states that are, because that's the other thing about this stuff is every state market is different. Every state law is different. In some states, including Illinois, we changed ours on the fly with Governor Pritzker. You have to actually tip the cap to him because of his executive orders lifting the in-person registration requirements. So you could just register from these apps on your phone. That was not supposed to be a thing here for a year and a half. And some states like Iowa didn't change it until there's one into effect on January 1 this year where you can register from your couch. But some states were struggled because of that. But there was definitely like a clear just uptick, like you said, especially with all the sports happening at the same time, with people just registering and betting from their phones. And you saw it reflected in the revenue numbers. No, I mean, New Jersey just fell south of $1 billion in handle in December, which is absolutely nuts because the whole state took in 2019, New Jersey, 4.58, I want to say it was, just off the top of my head, $1 billion in handle in the whole calendar year. And there was just $1 billion in 1 month alone last year. So it's just, that's the way we're moving. And Gen Z, obviously everyone knows that they just want to be on their couch and not talk to a human being and just, and do it from their phone. So we're moving in that direction. And states that have those archaic laws requiring people to go in person and do it are adjusting on the fly now. And those that are not adjusting are suffering as a result because they're not getting any money. People are keeping their action offshore and with their corner bookie and stuff.
How much do you think I guess record or lifetime high of state debt has influenced states' desires to have the legalization, the regulation, the taxation of sports betting like this.
Another perfect, like that's, I talked about this on my podcast past couple episodes. This is the pandemic.
Doggy Juice Podcast.
It's
Tune in.
it's forcing people, states to change their tune, and the biggest example of that is Governor Cuomo in New York. I mean, he's been the one, because sports betting is legal in New York, but you have to do it in person, and they don't have mobile set up, and so everyone's driving over to New Jersey, and that's why the New Jersey's just reaping the benefits of that, and it's because of Cuomo. It's complicated too, but Cuomo's really been the one who's been the one who's been keeping
the stalwart holdout.
Yeah, exactly. He's not letting it be, but now he's changing his tune because they're about New York City's on the verge of a financial crisis. So he's just a couple weeks ago, he was all over the news for changing his course on that. But now he's fucking it up the way he wants to set it up. And I won't get it. He wants to do the lottery system, and Oregon's been doing that, and in DC, and no one's betting there. So, you are seeing states change their tune on this, and they're going to get more desperate for state revenue. So it's going to motivate lawmakers and regulators to move fast. I mean, we've seen just this week other states, even Texas came out of nowhere, and that's a state you don't expect to legalize it anytime soon. But there's some lawmakers there that are introducing bills as well.
What's the lottery system?
So basically, the lottery system, the way that's set up is just the lottery controls all betting. So there's not, you don't have like multiple. There's no competition. There's not like you don't have like your DraftKings and your FanDuels and stuff. Although New Hampshire is an example of a lottery system that just contracted with one operator, and that's DraftKings, to handle everything. But the problem when you do that is there's no competition, and so like the line, the odds are whatever they want the odds to be. You saw Montana do this actually on the first. When I'll never forget when Illinois sports betting launched on March 9th, Montana had just launched, and Montana, the odds were coming out. Like people were taking screenshots of the odds coming out of the book in Montana, because the only book in town there, and they're offering like minus 125 juice on both sides, and that's just, it's just no one's going to bet into that. Anybody that understands sports bet, even like a casual bettor, is not going to do it for long, and it's just going to keep money offshore and stuff, and it's going to keep money in the black market, and as a result, you've seen Montana make like no money. Same with Oregon. And you're seeing Oregon now shift. The governor in Oregon's backing a new bill that's going to reshift the way that they have their setup, because they've had their setup in a lottery system too for the past, I forget when they launched, but it's been a while.
For those, go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, why would they do that? Like, is this some sort of like moral high ground, or?
That's the perfect way to put it. Yeah, it's like it's their heads in the sand on it. They think that if they control it, they're going to make more money somehow. It's just like a fundamental misunderstanding. They think that they can, if they're the ones making more money. You even saw Cuomo say like last week,
government, so. He
said he doesn't want to make casinos rich. He wants to make the state rich, but he doesn't understand that like that system that he's trying to put in, a lottery system where they control everything, is going to be the worst system. It's just not going to work. And there's already case studies that are playing out in that regard. So,
and those policies have worked so well for New York so far. Why would he dare change it?
Well, even without getting in political, and I don't comment on this. So for me, like I always say that if they're this confused, lawmakers, about sports betting and stuff, because like this is like the one legal issue that I consider myself like an expert on. Like if they're this uninformed and don't understand, like it really freaks me out for the more important shit, like like Homeland Security and stuff, like how they don't understand that stuff, and obviously the pandemic and stuff, if they're this dumb about sports betting and naive about stuff, then we're in trouble.
Has there been any dialogue about, there's been a lot in the news recently, and I think these are distinct entities, but there's been a lot in the news recently about your retail investor through platforms like Robinhood and some of the moral hazard associated with that bleeding over into things like sports betting?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a correlation there. I mean, and there's predatory practices that, I was telling you guys off air before we started recording, in New Jersey, the regulator sent out this advisory this week, and it got over the news and stuff, and operators are basically, there's some predatory practices in terms of withdrawals, and if a player puts in a withdrawal, there's like a long delay, and sometimes operators are incentivizing them to withdraw their withdrawal or just cancel the withdrawal altogether, and so it's there's these practices by these parties that want your money, and you're seeing all these parlay advertisements and stuff. Everyone just wants your money, and there is that the philosophical debate on like what's moral and what's what's even legal in that regard. And it's the Wild West right now. It's like the beginning. This stuff wasn't happening anywhere outside of Nevada for all intents and purposes a few years ago. So, things are changing pretty fast. And even from the marketing side, you have to watch out for that stuff. There's definitely a correlation because everyone, last year was saving money, getting their stimulus checks and wanting to put it in the stock market. And now they're trying to play around the sports betting market. And,
Fascinating.
yeah.
Fascinating. Cool. Very, 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 very cool.
You say you don't want to get political. Did you bet on Donald Trump and Joe Biden?
Actually,
What were the odds there? What was the juice on
that
that?
What
one?
was the juice?
that was actually one of the most fascinating markets that I've seen play out in my life, and that actually topped 2016, which is one of the craziest things you'll ever see. Because obviously, political betting is not legal in the United States, but offshore, it's by far the biggest market. I mean, the amount of handle that legal books take in Europe and in other places on the election, and including the U.S. election, dwarfs Super Bowl betting here. It's just
Really?
Yeah, it's not even close. And for the election, I don't have. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars wagered, and the amount of money that came in on this election was absolutely crazy. But you monitor the lines, and I recorded a podcast on this. I think it was episode 99, and I tried to break it down after the fact. I brought on a guest that was more savvy on that stuff, and basically, like, we saw like a complete market overreaction on election night this year, where I mean, you guys know the story too. I mean, it was Biden was favored before election night, and then on election night, Trump moved to a massive. I think he got as high as $7. And
I saw that.
Yeah,
and then I was watching on Twitter, and I was like, oh, well, I just considered, I was like, oh, well, then these gambler guys, that's like Alabama, like playing Bowling Green now.
I know exactly.
I was like, okay, well, I was like texting people. I'm like, dude, it's already decided. Like, I know it's only like 10% of the vote in, but I was just like,
I was telling,
I mean, these markets for the betting, I was like, Donald Trump has won. There's no way they would give you,
They could be this wrong.
Yeah, they could be this wrong, or give people basically free money.
It was crazy. It's something like you just won't see in a market with that much liquidity and that much money going into it, being that wrong. Because I was saying the same thing, because I always say the markets are truth. Like, markets will get you to where you need to be, the wisdom of the crowds and stuff. And when that was happening on election night, it was just a wild thing to see, because I was even like telling like family members, like, this thing's pretty much over. Like, it's a done deal now. And then you wake up the next morning and Biden's a minus 250 favored. And so it's going to be like one of those rare betting events in our lifetime where, there's so many people bet into it and they were just completely wrong on it. And you can think of reasons why. Some of them are pretty obvious, like, counting the late vote and not properly
mail in and
not taking that into account. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they probably were just looking at it and they're just like, well, they didn't expect the steal, Mike. I mean, come on.
Don't get political, Mike. Where do you stand on the steal and storming the Capitol building?
Let's just go right into it. The Doggy Juice Podcast becomes completely political.
You'll be canceled. You've been canceled.
You mentioned it got more bets than the Super Bowl. Super Bowl coming up here. I know you said, NFL, just the game itself is not it's a coin toss basically, but I did want to get into any Super Bowl strategies. I know I love to do the prop bets.
Oh yeah.
Like when Reggie Bush was dating Kim Kardashian and they're like, will Kim Kardashian be shown 4 times? And I'm like, dude, I'd show her 4,000 times. So
I need to make that possibility important to me by putting hundreds of dollars on it.
Although, 2021, it'd probably would be a live stream on that person. Like, watch on Twitch. It's just Kim Kardashian. There's no football. But is there any strategies at all in the Super Bowl that you care to share before this big game?
Yeah, so like the Super Bowl prop markets are robust. You can make a lot just by arbing, the lines themselves, because books put up different, when you're like Nevada and all the books open up their props, and most of them, let's be real, copy off other books, but you can have opportunities where, one book will put up, who's going to play in the Super Bowl? Let's say Travis Kelce reception yards prop at 55.5. The other one will put it up at 69.5. And you can have an over at one book and an under at another one, because they're just trying to balance their own liability. And plus books want to take a stand, they have a different opinion on the game too sometimes. So you can really have, if you really have the liquidity, obviously, and the capital to put a lot of money down, you could have amazing middles on some of these these props, but there's a few that I play every year, and I do play props every Super Bowl. It's been profitable over time, and there's some props that I play like every single year, and I talked about this on my podcast. There's a couple where you could just really prey on the public thinking. One of my favorites that I literally play every year is whether or not there's going to be 3 consecutive scores by either team, and a lot of people, and it's juiced out to it's. So basically, it does happen all the time. People don't understand, but like teams score 3 straight times very often. So that's the favorite by a bit. But you're getting good value on that bet just because everybody thinks no and they want to take the plus price on that, and so it opens up value that you won't have any other. That market's not available for every game sometimes, and usually books have that market available. But during the regular season, you're going to see the price on that, like 50 or 60 cents more expensive on the yes than it is on a Super Bowl Sunday. So it's, you're going to open up value and find value on some bets like that where you're just fading the public basically on stuff that the public's betting.
That's a good one. I might do that if I can find it offered.
There's a list. I'll go over it. There's a list of ones I play like literally every single year. But there's, just the market opportunities are great in the Super Bowl just because so many books have different lines up, and you got to shop around. I always tell people the best thing you could do is have multiple outs because you always got to get the best price. I mean, you want to do that anyway, but in the Super Bowl especially, you can find some big discrepancies on player props.
How are sports books managed as a whole? Like, what does that look like? From a personnel, a logistics standpoint.
That's a really good question. It calls for a very complicated answer. I mean, because it's.
I'm just buying Adam time as he goes around your empty high back leather chair and sneaks over to grab a beer.
Well, so books, they need to manage their own risk, and every book's going to do that differently and there's other considerations of why they do that. Sometimes they have to answer to a board of people, a corporate office that just doesn't give a shit. They just care about the bottom line. But one popular misnomer out there is that books want to do whatever they can to attract equal action on both sides. Well, that's largely true, but books take positions on games all the time. And I know, some books will take a bigger position than other books and stuff, but books take positions on games all the time, and it's on a weekly, daily basis. So managing sports book, obviously, it depends on your own philosophies and stuff. Some books just, if you're even a semblance of a sharp bettor, they'll shut you down. And unfortunately, that's a big issue right now early on in the industry because you're seeing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like a European influx of European companies and operators that are coming in and running the show, and that's the model over there. Basically, if you're a sharp punter, to use the term, over in the UK or over across the pond, then it's really hard to get down. They'll just completely limit you. And I've had it happen to me here. Unfortunately, like I can't get down more than $12 on a college football game at Bet Rivers, and they started limiting me on the NFL too, of all sports recently. And,
really?
Yeah, which just makes no sense to me.
And that's because you've been that successful with your calls?
Well, so I've made money there, but it hasn't been like crazy. And to be honest with you, like I think it's more, and I know this is the case too. It's the way you bet. Because books do they loop you into they loop you into a certain group, and they definitely they identify their customer type by the way they bet, and it's not necessarily the amount you're betting too. It's if you're arbing games, if you're taking both sides and trying to get off on. There's a bunch of different reasons why they do it. I think there's a lot of false positives. It's actually a subject I feel very strongly about because I completely disagree with that practice for a lot of reasons. I think they're actually going to be net negative with that type of decision making in the long run because there's a lot of false positives out there where they're saying a guy's a sharp where he's not, but also I think there's a real advantage to taking sharp money for a lot of reasons, if not just to know where the sharp money is and where the sharp money is thinking in a game. But yeah, that's a big issue.
So the system is overly sensitive, but not necessarily specific for the people. So it's catching too many people in the net.
That's my opinion. Yeah. Because I hear a lot of people that are coming out and saying that they've been limited by book A, book B, and it's happening everywhere too. And that's just one of the like grand macro issues that's happening in the industry right now is, these books, they have a certain model and they want to make money, obviously. And they're, if you're showing that you can beat them in the long term, they're either completely cutting you off or they're limiting you.
So big, I guess, investment firms, however you want to think of it, like Berkshire Hathaway is obligated by the SEC to kind of publish where they're putting money in and who they're betting on and that sort of thing, which oftentimes can drive markets. We saw it with some gold buying, some gold exploration and mining companies earlier in the pandemic. Is there a future, or is there a present situation where individuals who have, or at least claim to have, historical betting success are publicly publishing what they're calling and on what sport, and does that drive markets?
Good question there. No, so there's no. I mean, there's a lot of touts out there.
I'm going 60 minutes on you. I'm going full 60 minutes on you.
Great. No, because like that's really like, the tout industry in sports, but I mean, you guys see it everywhere on social media. Everyone's winning. Right. Everyone's winning all the time and stuff. And there's lots of talk about predatory shit out there. I mean, don't pay for picks, everybody. You heard it here. Like, because that's extra vig. And any asshole that's telling you he's hitting over 60% is bullshitting you. I can promise you that, because it's impossible. No one does in the long term. And I don't care who you are. And it's one of those things. Like 55%.
What about that one
like,
guy? What about that guy Matthew McConaughey played in that movie? What was that?
Uncut Gems, Adam Sandler.
No. It was based on a true story, I think. It was with Al Pacino.
Oh, God. Oh, are you talking about Casino with not Casino?
No. Type in Al Pacino. Wait, just hold up here, Mike. Al Pacino and Matthew McConaughey.
Two for the money?
2 for the money.
2005 film.
Never saw that one.
It didn't get great ratings. But I think it's
at
based,
all.
Look to see if it's based on a true guy.
All right, I'm on it.
I think it was probably like Rothstein.
Yeah, I think this guy, and actually the funny thing is, it was in the NFL. So.
No, yeah, that's any guy
that
says
they based the movie on it, it's got to be true, right?
Yeah, of course, yeah, definitely. No, it's anybody. It really is. It's complicated beating the sports betting markets, because it's just any guy that's just like picking games. And
so over 60% doesn't happen.
It just does not happen when you're laying minus 110. I mean, you can hit 60% if you're like, betting into $4 favorites, but you have to break even on that. You know what I mean? Like, so the more vig you're paying, the more your break even percentage has to be, the higher your break even percentage has to be. So it's there's lots of touts out there though in the industry, and there's no like way where you can. People say they're on a certain play at a certain number and stuff. There's no way to fact check that or anything like that. And I know that there's some better BETTOR advocacy groups that are in the works right now that are trying to bring more light and shed more light onto that, because it is valuable to know like where, guys whose opinions you trust, like what bets they're on and stuff. But at the same time, if you're a market maker and if you're actually moving the market, no one's going to be able to get down on the price that you're able to get on, because folks are going to move it at the time. So like really like any guy that's trying to sell picks, you should be running away right away, because that means he's not winning. Because the guys that are winning
for money.
Exactly. The guys that are winning are moving the markets and staying quiet.
Sure. We were talking about the Super Bowl. I did just want to follow up on that, because I'm hoping. I know you're not into the predictions. You're more of the data. What's the number kind of guy. But why don't you go ahead and tell us who's going to be in the Super Bowl, how much they're going to win by, and
why the Bills,
and why it's the Bills,
and why the Bills.
Yeah, I mean so the Chiefs are going to beat the Packers by 3 is the most likely result, 30-27 for an official prediction. That's what the line will be. But
okay.
But, and the
Chiefs heard it here first.
By 3.
No, actually, right now I would actually have the Chiefs.
He's like, we've known this for weeks.
No, I'd have the Chiefs favored by actually less than 3.
He's got some sort of minority report set up.
Right. I'm looking it up right now.
He's tossing frames of the future.
Sorry, Doggy. So Chiefs beat the Packers by 3.
No, actually, I'm looking up right now. I would not have them favored by 3. It would be around 1 or 1.5. Obviously, how the teams play the next couple weeks.
I would take that in a second.
I
got a feeling.
Yeah,
Chiefs over the Packers.
Yeah,
by 1.
And we could see 3 be the line. I mean, depending on how the teams look the next couple weeks, and obviously if there's any injuries and stuff. But yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are they're the top of the power ratings right now for me. But it's bunched up, man. There's all the teams that are, at the top.
But what about Chiefs plus 10 versus the Browns tomorrow?
Chiefs laying the 10. That's a little.
Yes.
That's a little. That's a bit inflated this week, to be honest. And I think that line is going to close below 10. The way things are looking, it looks like it's juiced out on the Browns right now. So if you're looking to take the points with the Browns, I bet it's sooner rather than later. But no, I got that one lined a little lower. I actually took some Browns plus 10 myself, but the Browns that's one of my futures bets. I was preseason, man. I got them 50-1 to win the Super Bowl, and them and the
Oh, really?
Not bad.
Them and the Bucks.
Now
The
I got
Bucks
to
is
root for
my
the
big
Browns.
one,
I'm going to
though.
be with Mike Parker tomorrow, if you want to join, by the way. But
yeah, I'm around.
he's a Chiefs fan. Now I'm going to be thinking in my head, I'm like, oh, the other dude. We hang out with a lot of Mikes here.
Yeah,
Mike Parker, Dirty
people
Mike,
think we just
Doggy Juice
blanket
Mike.
name everybody Mike so that
Yeah.
we can't actually identify anybody.
But I'll be thinking, how much you bet on that, if you don't mind me asking?
On what? On the on
Browns future.
Yeah, I never share my amounts. I just did like a standard 1 unit play on that.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone has a different. I always tell people if you bet in like unit sizes, it's what's $100 to one guy could be different to another guy and stuff.
Okay,
That's fair.
I like that.
If you stick to your bankroll, that's
I'm gonna definitely say that from now on.
Well, no,
I bet 2 units on this.
it's kind of a fun point. I mean, my dad throws around money with his brother, my uncle, and they'll talk about like, I made a single unit play, and I think my dad's done pretty well in life, and for him that's $25.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Well, no,
Dad,
yeah,
what?
it's different to everybody.
So lame.
While he drinks a $200 bottle of wine, I'm like, you put down $25 on this thing? You
This is my whole
scream
thing.
at the TV
This is my
for
whole
3
thing.
hours.
You
Come
can
on.
do that. You can do that, but do not get emotionally involved because I'm in a pretty serious fantasy football league where we all put up a good amount of money each year, and we're sitting around, and my old roommate Chris is like sitting on the edge of the coffee table, like, "Oh my, I swear to God, Devontae Adams." I'm like, "What? He on your team?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I'm in the semifinal, dude." And I was like, "Oh, what do you pay for?" He's like, "Oh, we put in $50 each." I'm like, "What? That's so lame." Why? First of all, I mean, yeah, $50, whatever. On a normal Saturday for some people,
Perfect.
That's a perfect number. You're talking about fantasy football. This is an entire season bet,
Yeah, dude.
and you're willing to break it out per week. It's like,
That's
dude,
30-year-old
it is like basically an Arby's
$3
like
a
gift
week.
certificate that you're winning. It's like, dude, it's fine if you don't want to play for more. It's fine, but do not sit on the edge of the coffee table and act like the entire world is pending on the next play to Devontae Adams.
Well, do they have like a punishment in the league? Maybe he's got to like
No,
wax his
the
ass or
league
something?
is lame. Mine is you got to put in pretty much a mortgage payment, and then if you come in last place, the punishment last year is you had to drop a box of dildos in a Mac store. You could literally go to jail for like pedophilia if there was a kid or two around. That's where you'd be on the edge of your coffee table.
I could
Oh
never
my
be in
God.
that league.
I propose tattoo every year. It gets voted down.
So you guys would like this. My favorite league, the league that I'm the commissioner for, is we actually have a promotion relegation system set up. So we have 2 leagues because we had the main league and a bunch of guys wanted to get into it from our high school buddies. And so we said, all right, let's do. So we have a 12-person league, and then we had 8. Now it's 10 in the other league, and they kick up money to the top league, and the bottom 2 guys in the top league every year get relegated to the bottom league, and the top 2 from the bottom league get promoted.
Oh, so you're
So it's
running
like
a
a
pyramid scheme.
Yeah, no, it
So
literally is, man.
pyramid
But that was part of the terms, man. They
You got
agreed
to
to do
sell
it.
this many berries if you lose.
But then we have whoever gets last in the lower league has we call them the bitch of the year, and they get the punishment. We come up with a punishment in the top league for them to do, and they know the punishment when the season starts, and it could be interesting, man. We did the hot wings challenge last year for the losing guy, and then
That's a
yes.
good punishment. I haven't thought about that one. All
This
of
year-
ours are like sadistic.
Oh,
It's not just fun. It's not like, oh, eat some hot wings.
fucking
It's like your life has now changed.
the guy.
I like the relegation though. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's a great. It really changes things up because it keeps guys trying. The asshole that can't get in the playoffs anymore isn't just like quitting. From managing his team. He's playing to not get relegated then. And that's
Mike, I wouldn't know anything about how that feels.
Yeah.
That's all I experience.
Well, we tried to in ours, like, it's pretty. You'll know this, Mike. It's very serious because I tried to actually propose. Speaking of, you have a 12-team league. I tried to propose adding 2 more. We've all gone through life. We've met new people. We're like, oh, this guy would be cool in the league. I proposed that, and they're like, no. The only opening is when someone dies. We're just going to be the same 10 guys. Eventually be like 45 and it'll be like 10 grand each. Which I will love. Which will be great. It'll be great.
Yeah. Mike, I'm curious when you're sitting down watching sports with people and someone's watching a game and the tide turns suddenly and someone starts screaming the fix is in, this is my dad on his $25 bet,
fix is in,
this is rigged, home job,
let's get into this.
How do you feel about whether it's, I mean, the NBA I feel like is the place where I feel this could
how do you feel
be
about
the most
overall
possible.
rigs and why is the NBA so rigged?
And why does the NFL
obvious?
hate Buffalo?
Honestly, dude, I mean, I hate to break it to you guys. It's overwhelming majority, if not 99% plus of the time, the fix is not in. But having said that, match fixing it is an ongoing problem on a global scale, and there are instances of it. But the overwhelming majority are actually in tennis, especially smaller level tennis games.
Really?
Yeah,
we gotta get into
tennis.
No, but
you gotta start reading the dark web tennis blogs.
But the people that are more susceptible are those people in lower level tennis that are making peanuts, and they're approachable, and it's just they're a single person. It's usually not even them dropping the game necessarily. Maybe it's dropping a set. But this stuff, the technology's in place to pick up on that, irregular line moves and stuff. And that's why legal betting's better, because you keep it all above board regulated and you can monitor the betting patterns and everything. But it doesn't happen as much as you think, guys. It's
when I say fixes in, I don't think of it like that, though. I don't think of some nefarious character going up to someone on the Lakers. I just think of, all right, they have meetings, right? Maybe mine's more complicated. But you got to think. Okay, look, the refs are out there. You got LeBron and the Lakers in a Western championship, right? You got whoever the fuck, right? Let's just whatever other team, the Jazz. Perfect. There we go. You got LeBron versus the Jazz. Do you really think there's not more? And I'm not saying fix, we will do this, but you don't think that that subconsciously they're like, well, we're going to give LeBron more calls because in the long run we kind of want him to be in the final. We don't want to watch Jokic, who looks like your dad, doing basketball moves. We want to watch LeBron launch from the free throw line. So I think it's more of subconscious fixes in. It's give him the call, give him the call,
right?
Whereas Utah's not going to get nearly as many calls because they don't have the clout, and the NBA is very much of a star-driven league. We want to see LeBron versus KD. We don't want to see fucking Jokic versus whoever, I guess you could say the Miami Heat got there last year, so the fix is not in. But it's the Miami Heat were a very interesting team.
Fun to watch.
I don't see and they got LeBron there, so it's whoever he's playing doesn't matter. So I would just say it's more of a thought of, okay, we want the stars in. We're going to call a little bit more. And if it just so happens that they win, then that benefits everybody, right? Well, it's not all right, 8 points is on the line.
Doggy, what do you got?
The Lakers versus Utah.
I was going to say, if the NBA was fixed, the Clippers wouldn't have lost to the Jazz in the playoffs last year because the NBA lost so much goddamn TV money, on that Clippers-Lakers matchup.
The fix...
That's a good point, though.
I haven't explained it correctly.
No, but so the subconscious bias thing,
I don't know. I want to look back at the stats of that game, but
no, for sure.
I would be willing to bet they got more calls. So look, you can lose with the fix in. You can still lose with the fix being in. But if you look at the data, I bet you the Clippers got more calls.
How much vig you giving me on that bet? How much juice am I getting on that?
I'm just saying.
You can't just say I bet now.
First of all, let's quit acting like the NBA didn't already get caught for doing this.
Yeah, so the Tim Donaghy scandal, that was a thing, obviously, and it's a huge black eye in the NBA. But there are protections in place for this stuff, and you better believe there's other people out there monitoring it. There's integrity monitoring companies and stuff. But to your subconscious bias and even just straight up psychological bias point, I think there's definitely something to that. I mean, you've always seen top players get calls over the
all
years.
I wanted to hear.
It's just, I think that's more to the referee bias and stuff more than anything else. And, you always hear assholes and I'm not calling you guys assholes, but the people out there that are saying, but no, people that are
Specifically, Adam.
Good to be here with you, Adam.
guys that lose their $25 bet, not calling your dad an asshole either, who says that, the fix is in and stuff. People are really just, first of all, they're just thinking about their own bet and stuff, but they're also, they're thinking about it a certain way. It's just a psychological tendency to want to blame something and come up with a reason why you lost. And in reality, this stuff is so highly regulated and especially the NBA after that black eye that they had.
Yeah.
The Donaghy thing was a real bad thing. And I don't without, going into further stuff on the NBA, it's, because there's been a history of accusations and stuff, but they've tried to clean up their act, especially with Adam Silver, the commissioner now. But no, I think there's something to that for sure, the subconscious bias. So,
but it works the other way too. It's not just like, oh, let's give LeBron a bunch of calls. Like, remember when Shaq was playing and he was such a giant monster that they wouldn't call stuff because they're like, oh, Shaq can take it. He's a monster.
He's Goliath.
It's like, oh, he can take a little bit of, a hack on the arm here or there.
For
like,
sure.
It works the other way too, where they're like, that guy's so dominant that we kind of don't want to call everything because you can't stop him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'd have to call it every single time.
He breaks the framework.
Yeah.
It doesn't work otherwise.
could you imagine like today's refs in today's NBA with Will Chamberlain, but the same people he played with, the same people Will Chamberlain
Or
played
Shaq?
with? You probably would have.
Oh, no way.
You brought this up last night, so I don't know who you were watching. By the way, just a quick LeBron. A quick sidebar. I was watching the Bulls OKC game last night. I would like a survey here. Can you name one player on the Oklahoma City Thunder, Sean? Just name one player.
Is Serge Ibaka still there?
No.
No, he's in the Raptors. No,
Doggy?
dude. Oh,
Mike, can you name one human on the Oklahoma City Thunder?
I mean, honestly, gotta Google it, dude. Gotta Google it. It's like the only way.
Wild.
How about this name? Shea Gilgeous-Alexander.
Yeah. I think they got Horford.
You still
now,
don't know who that is. He is their best player.
No.
What about Luke Dort or Dort? Dort.
No. Have you seen how many first round draft picks they have though through 2025? I think
They do.
They've got like 12
they have
or
a
something.
wild amount of first round draft picks.
Why would Billy Donovan leave then? Stay for the Rounders.
Anyway, that was it's dated now, but that game last night was wild. It was just like I literally had it on, and the Bills were up by like 12 points in the midway through the fourth, and they had been crushing them all game. So I'm on the computer, blah blah.
I think they were up
I'm
by
not
like
even
20
watching
and a
the
half,
game
right?
anymore. I looked
20 and a
over,
half, yeah.
it's 118. I'm like, what in the world happened?
How did they surge
And I think the
back?
Bulls, watching them lately, they're almost a good team.
I think they covered 5 straight before last night. Yeah.
But they're losing all of those, that 5 straight. They're losing all of them by like 2 points.
That's perfect.
Whatever. I've gone off the rails.
Want the Bulls to show progress, but still get a good draft pick next year. So
What's do you know off the top of your head if Brooklyn is now favored to win the championship with Harden?
It depends on which book you're looking at right now. It's close between them. I know they dropped from the consensus price was 6-1 to now they're around plus 250 in that range. So it's going to be in a similar spot as the Lakers. I think they might be. Depends on the book. I don't know if all books are the same. Or obviously I know that they're not, but in the same range. I don't know if all of them have the Nets as the actual favorite right now.
You follow basketball at all?
Oh yeah, no, basketball's my favorite sport.
Oh, it is. What do you think? What do you think of that trade?
I mean, the Nets are giving up the future again. I think that it's one of those things where there's only one ball, obviously, to play with, and it's a similar.
Unfortunately, I'd like to ask that.
That'd be kind of cool.
See, the
Make
thing
it
is,
smaller.
people are going to change their perceptions like right away. People are going to probably overreact early on if there's a bit of like a assimilation process. And actually, I'm looking it up right now as we're talking. The Lakers are still
So
favorites
now with that, would that be a good idea then? Because I think this happened with the Heat. I think it happened with the Celtics, where immediately they don't gel and it doesn't look good.
exactly. That's
Now
the time
would
to
the
get on.
markets blast them down. Whereas you're like, oh, they will gel, and then will you bet them to then win the championship because of that initial like, all right, we're getting used to each other. Do the markets react to that at all?
Usually, yes, they do. The markets, I mean, they're changing all the time based off, and in books, maybe they'll change a futures market just on their own accord, or they'll change it based off, more likely because of money coming in on a certain team, they'll adjust accordingly. And you could find value those ways. And futures markets aside, I don't think that's the best. Usually you're not getting any value in a futures market just because the household percentage is so high on those. But you could find value on that stuff. And that's the time to get in, so if the Nets are having a tough start, which is foreseeable, these guys trying to assimilate themselves together. And you saw it, the Lakers with bumps early on. When LeBron first went to the Heat, they struggled early on. Yeah. And you can find some nice, that's the time to buy low on them. But we all know this, and the actual games themselves, but it changes in the playoffs completely. And when it's more of a half court type of game with a lot more timeouts called for TV money, and you can play a shorter rotation, 6, 7, 8 guys in your rotation, and keep the stars out there longer. That's when it's going to be advantage Nets, especially come playoff time when they have those 3 stars that they can go to. So it might not play out as much in the games we're seeing now in the regular season, but in the playoffs, it's going to be a whole different animal.
I thought it was you only have one chance to win. Like, I'm not like a big think about the future guy. It's like if you're the GM of the Nets, you're like, I win now. I don't wait for anything to happen, and who knows?
Although last time they did that,
Kyrie will be there. He'll show up. Whatever he's doing right now. But I thought it was a great trade. Like, let's do it. Let's go for it right now. Yeah, and he probably called up KD and Kyrie. You would think, right? And they were like, let's do it. So everyone's on the same page. Everyone's like, the poison. Actually,
these guys were in a group chat the moment that was even.
Yeah, and I actually think that all of their poisonousness is similar.
Little witches
brew.
So
really, I think it works somehow. I think if you get a bunch of guys who are poisonous in the same way, they can relate to each other. It's
like a Mean Girls situation.
Yeah, you hate the media, I hate the media, blah, blah, blah. And all you needed to do is really you like strip clubs, so do I. All you needed to do is really last and go, to the championship. And then you can break apart.
Half a year.
Then the poison settles again. And then you come back and let's run it back. I think it'll work out.
Yeah, it's cabin fever, man. Just got a couple years. That's why no one could no one stays at the same job.
Ball with all those guys. It's like, but they're the highest percentage scorers in isolation. So now that you have no help behind that ISO, James Harden driving to the hoop usually gets help.
How do you leave Harden to double?
Yeah, you can't.
Durant.
Yeah,
you can't.
Right.
So it's going to be a bunch of ISO ball. And to be honest, I think Kyrie, Kevin Durant, and James Harden are better at that than anybody. So I think they're going to score a shit ton of points.
I think so too.
I think they're going to score more points than you can't score as many. Basically, they're saying you can't score as many points. We don't need defense.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to score more points.
What's the situation around betting college ball and the dialogue around those guys not getting paid relative to professional athletes? Is there any kind of concern around that with college hoops compared to the NBA, or not really?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because college players are more susceptible to match fixing and to match manipulation, if you want to put it that way, to use absolutely, because they're not getting paid for that reason, and you've seen this. I mean, there's been college scandals in the past with the Boston College one. There's a few notable ones. You can probably Google famous basketball fixes and stuff, but and I know Arizona. I think it was Arizona State more recently and stuff. So there are instances of that, and that is a concern for sure, because NBA players, people are so or uninformed about this actually. So let me go back a little bit. So Al Leiter, remember the
go
pitcher?
Off, King, go off.
I'm going to do it. Remember Al Leiter, the pitcher, the baseball pitcher? He's older now. He went in front of a state regulatory board. Right after PASPA was overturned back in 2018, states were looking to legalize and stuff, and they brought in, obviously there's sides from the leagues and stuff. They didn't want this legalized, and other groups and stuff. So he was representing, the player side, saying like, hey, this is bad. Legalized sports betting is bad for the games, the integrity. And he was using this god awful example about how a pitcher you could even like Google this and like watch him say this. But he said, what's preventing a pitcher from telling one of his buddies, just for a ball strike prop on the first pitch of the game, just tell him, hey, throw a ball. It's not going to have any material impact on the game. And then what's preventing his buddy from going down and getting 10 grand down here on this casino and just driving around and getting the, $10,000 down on all these casinos. And like Al Leiter doesn't understand that like that prop that he's talking about, the limits are probably like $200. Books talk to each other, and once if one book gets popped for the max and keeps getting popped, then they're going to talk, and you're lucky if you can get a grand.
Yeah, they're just going to be like, "Why does Al Leiter's friend?"
Right, exactly. Books talk. I mean,
it'll last 30 minutes.
Yeah. Well, he just doesn't understand gambling, and to be honest, I would have thought the same thing.
No, exactly, and that's most people don't think that, and so the NBA, the thought process that you can manipulate, that these players are approachable. That like James Harden is going to take, like a certain amount of money to like miss a free throw
from DraftKings or something.
Yeah, right. Or he's going to take even money from like a guy who's going to tell him, hey, like miss your first free throw or something like that. Whatever prop you can get down, like any amount of money that you see how much they're fined for games. It's like a joke. If you're going to pay him 50 grand to do it, there's no way in hell you're going to get 50 grand out on that prop. And James Harden ain't going to risk anything for 50 grand. So you're just talking about like that's something that's like not going to happen in the NBA. At all, but in college, absolutely, it's more of an issue because these guys, they're making $0, and some of these smaller
there's no uncut gem scenario where you're sitting down with Kevin Garnett and you have some sort of rock or stone from a faraway land that he needs to touch,
a blood diamond of sorts,
and able to win the game, and now you're in cahoots.
Oh my god! I've not seen that movie. I don't know.
You haven't seen the movie?
I haven't seen it yet.
You're not missing anything.
No, I mean I've heard from friends in the industry that it's surprise, incredibly unrealistic. It's not that I don't. It's not that I don't want to see it. I mean, the notion though that you can get down on any specific player prop like that is completely misguided. And like with the Al Leiter example, but I'm not actively not seeing that movie. I just haven't had enough time. It's not high enough on the list, so to speak.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if you want to be completely stressed out for an hour and 45 minutes, then it's pretty good. Guy risking his entire family, life, and everything for prop bets.
Who is looking for a little more blood pressure these days?
Yeah, no, that's bad for the industry when shit like that comes out, though. Really, I mean, especially when trying to like change the thinking of all. We were talking before the lawmakers who are thinking a certain way and just stuck in their ways. Mm-hmm. And the stigma to sports betting and stuff. That's not going to do the stigma any services, that movie.
If you could communicate like one elevator pitch to, one of these senators or one of these House of Representatives members about sports betting, what would it be? You got a 30-second elevator ride with them. Man. What would you tell them about sports betting?
All right, you got to open it up. You have to regulate it. You have to embrace liquidity, because if you keep the betting above board, you're not going to drive. If you offer competitive pricing and create a market where operators are incentivized to innovate and welcome in any type of action, you're going to keep the money away from the black market, away from offshore, and it's going to be better for the games themselves because you can keep the integrity of the games in check by monitoring the betting patterns, keeping that above board. And also it's better for your state revenue because you're going to keep the money in regulated markets instead of offshore in the black market. So the taxpayers are going to benefit as a result.
Ding! The doors open, and the Capitol rioters are flooding in.
Damn you!
That's perfect.
It's okay. I bet $40,000 that we do it at the exact same time. Why?
Because that's the mic.
What?
That's your mic to him.
Oh, can I? Testing. Oh, okay, I see. Where are you going?
Bathroom.
Oh, you're going to the bathroom. On your way back, can you grab me a beer? I was just going to leave. All right, well, Mike, I think the last thing I really wanted to ask about, because it's on its way up here, is do you do any blood sport gambling?
UFC with Conor McGregor?
UFC is the bloodiest, yeah, and then we have McGregor, Poirier too coming up. McGregor's been talking a big game, but I was interested in learning more about that type of gambling because there's multiple ways to approach it, and I don't know if you're interested in it or know about it.
No, yeah, I do. Wondering. I bet UFC. I mean, I don't originate my own number. The only games the only sports I make numbers for myself are NFL, college football, college basketball, and sometimes NBAs. Golf is the next one I'm trying to get into, doing my own stuff and my own models. But like for UFC, I don't originate my own stuff. When I get good information from friends in the industry who specialize in the UFC, usually that's when I get involved. So I'm not like actively betting it regularly, but I do, I have action on pretty much any, UFC card, sometimes more than others, but so in terms of like this specific one, I don't have any insight on which way to bet. Although, I would be remiss if I didn't say that Mayweather-McGregor, the boxing event, was still the singular greatest sporting event of my entire lifetime. And I think in the end it will be, just because getting Floyd Mayweather laying $4 in a spot where he should have been a $50 favorite. That's the type of betting value that comes around once in a lifetime. So, and sometimes you'll see that, you'll see bigger, public. I'm trying to think of the last fight I had decent money on. Masvidal's last fight.
Speaking of that one, the McGregor Mayweather one. So, yeah, break that down again. So, how much was Mayweather favored by?
So that was one where books opened that around where it should have been, where Mayweather was like a $20 favor. You got to lay $20 to win $1. But it was just one of those rare once in a lifetime betting events because of the sheer amount of public money on Conor McGregor. And when you see Conor McGregor with a plus price next to him in any combat sport, and because everybody's a Conor McGregor fan and wants to get involved on his fights, just throw a little bit of pizza money down on him. But when you see him at a plus money and you're going to be able to, win more than you're putting down on a Conor McGregor fight, you want to bet it. And that event, the way it was advertised and the way it went down, just attracted so much public money. And you also had the Irish flooding into Vegas, and they're betting McGregor as well. And it was literally just the ultimate pros versus Joes or squares versus sharps betting events where you just had everybody on one side. So 95% of the tickets were on McGregor, 5% of the tickets were on Mayweather, but you had all the sharp guys coming back, and that line got down to they're offshore. I know a couple offshore sites they even dipped below Mayweather minus 400. So it was just one of those betting events where you should have been laying a lot more, and you didn't have to. So I mean, I remember even just anything, and I don't recommend parlays ever, but that was the one event where every bet I made for 2 weeks up until that fight, on college football, or no, that fight was on. I remember the date. That's how much I remember this. It was August 26th, 2017. That's how much that day sticks out. But I was parlaying everything with Mayweather for the 2 weeks leading up to it, just because, just including Mayweather in those. And so it was just one of those events where the spread was just so wrong and so off that made a lot of sharp guys, a lot of money.
That was one of those sporting events where, I remember exactly where I was too. I was in the bottom of a bar called the Winston in Vancouver with a couple buddies of mine, I think.
Oh, you weren't at my place?
No.
Oh.
No. For the Mayweather fight?
Yeah, McGregor?
No. And in Canada, the whole bar stopped and watched this fight. Yeah. It was maybe Canada's super into boxing. I just never thought of it that way.
No, and then
right now McGregor's minus 175.
Interesting. I think he's come down a bit then. I thought I saw him higher before. Yeah, I don't have any info on this fight. Usually, betting on a big public fighter like McGregor's not the best move and stuff. But it's a public fighter could be an underdog or a favorite. I mean, the last one that I had good money on was last summer. It was Usman over Masvidal, just because Masvidal was such a public. The public was all over Masvidal, and it opened up value on Usman. And I think I got down to it was minus 200, or maybe it was minus 180 on Usman when some of my guys in the industry were saying no, he should be a $3 favorite. We're getting great value on this one, but you see events like that where there's just heavy public action from the pizza money that's coming $20, $30 bets, but those add up.
I love that phrase.
Those add up.
Yeah. So I guess with fighting, you just you wait for the hype train to come through.
That's when
any of
the
these
bigger
guys,
bets.
right?
Yeah, unless I'm getting info from someone, that's really it. I'll look at the betting splits and you can also track it. You can see where the line opened and what why has this line come down 50 cents? Is it because of some news that came out that's changing the market perception, or is it just the money that's coming in? So you always have to look at the reason for the market move as well.
So cool. So cool.
I can't wait to watch that one.
Yeah, what do you guys? Do you guys think Mayweather? What are your thoughts on that fight?
Well, wait. Is McGregor fighting Mayweather?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Doggy Juice
Takes
predicts
me back to Canada.
Hey, why not do a second one? It'll make another $200 million each.
Can only
but
hope.
I watch a good amount of UFC, and McGregor. I'm not gonna have any kind of. Basically, I'm super biased towards McGregor because I like him. He's the ultimate entertainer. He has good little monologues, and he's more of like a wrestler kind of trash talk, which I love. Right?
Yeah, I like him too.
And he's a very skilled fighter. I've watched all of his fights. Very calm. He knows all of the techniques. He obviously couldn't compete with Khabib in wrestling at all. So, but he can wrestle. We've seen it in the past before, but he's not going to need that in this one. And since it's a stand-up bout, I think McGregor will win. I think it'll be a harder fight than people are thinking because no one knows Dustin Poirier, but he's a really good fighter, and we'll see. And the last time they fought, he was super young and very inexperienced, and he's had a bunch of fights since the last time they fought, and he's gotten way tougher and bigger, and he's improved his game. So I think it's going to be quite the fight, but I think McGregor will pull it out.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll stop it at any point in time, like, very quickly. That's another thing I was going to ask about gambling-wise. Like, you have to take that into consideration. You got to think that the UFC wants McGregor to win, right? So any of the refs, if McGregor catches him, right, and Dustin goes down hard, they're going to call it, I would think, quicker than they would other, no-name fighters. So that gives McGregor a tiny advantage. But I just think McGregor's too fast. He knows fighting, and I think he's motivated too, which is a big thing with him. He's got to be motivated, and I think he's very motivated for this fight.
I'm seeing minus 285 right now on that fight, which basically equates to a quick math lesson for your listeners. If you want a quick equation to translate odds to percentage chance of winning, just add, so the number you see when there's a minus, just add 100 to it and then divide the first number by the second. So the example of McGregor here is he's minus 285, I'm seeing. So you take 285, add 100, so it's 385. So you divide 285 by 385 and you get 0.74 and a bunch of other numbers. So it's saying it's 74% chance that he's going to win that fight.
I got that confused. He opened at minus 175, and apparently at January 13th, he's now at minus 310.
Yeah, some spots. Yeah, some spots could definitely be there. Yeah, so it's basically saying 75%. That doesn't surprise me.
When they open, that's the. Is there any difference in kind of the public bets it up or down? Can you kind of explain the opening, setting this number?
Yeah, how does that work?
Minus 175, like how does that happen?
Yeah, so that's nuanced. That's just going to be the book itself. And like there's certain market makers, like most books just copy off other books and most of the lines originate offshore. Usually the opening lines, it completely depends on the sport you're talking about, comes with lower limits as well, especially, in football, lower limits earlier in the week. Same thing with UFC. So obviously that means you can't necessarily trust the money as much coming in. You also have dumbing down of lines. Sometimes sharp groups or or even syndicates will bet a certain way to move it a certain way and then just come in with more money when the limits rise on the other side, just to dummy up the line. Got it. But basically, so the opening line will just be at the discretion of the odds maker, usually copying another book. And then, that's early on, if this line opened minus 185 or whatever, that was, with lower limits. And obviously the money, they got plenty of McGregor money to get to where they're at right now, which is not a surprise at all.
Doggy, I still feel like I have a lot to learn about this stuff. Where do we find your podcast and where do we find more information about this stuff as you broadcast, as you kind of educate everybody on this stuff?
So you can find it on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts, the Doggy Juice Podcast, and also dimers.com. They They're my sponsor. They post the podcast on there, and they're worth checking out as well because they have some really cool technology they do, and they run simulations on games and offer predictions too, and they're very accurate with them. But yeah, so I'm just on those two. I know even maybe I think it was you guys that reached out to me. They're like, why are you not on Spotify? And really, that's just because I suck with technology. I need to set it up on Spotify. But yeah, you can also just Google the Doggy Juice Podcast, and you should be able to play it on the Google machine as well. But I do need to make a point of getting this puppy out on every platform.
I'll send you
Fantastic.
the link. We use something called Transistor, where you post it, and then it posts it to every single place that
That's perfect.
has a podcast capability.
Yeah, I've had guys approach me about doing it for me and stuff, and I feel like an asshole. I just like, it's just I want to be in control of everything, and then then comes down to me just being too lazy to look up something like that or not having time. And but yeah, no, that's good to know. I'll probably hit you guys up for that separately after we're done.
Well, we appreciate all the time you took with us today. This was awesome.
Oh yeah,
we're hitting we hit an hour 15 here, brah.
Dude, that was fun, guys. That flew by. I still got to eat breakfast.
Flew
man.
by.
Yeah, would love to have you on again. We can make this work. We'll check out the audio that you'll send over, and then we'll post this.
We'll find a way,
brah. And
Sounds good.
we'll have the video too with this empty chair.
who are we going out on today?
Yeah, so Mike, you probably haven't watched the prior ones. We like to go out on some local music here in the outro. Last couple ones have been Chicago Southside rappers, which I'm in many talks and deals with to get in one of these videos. Yeah. But I do want to shout out Don Ghetto does have go listen to Ghetto Babies, but we're gonna go out on my boy Rio Peterson. He was in a play with me, American Idiot. It's a crime, a damn crime that this guy's not a famous songwriter or some sort of like. I feel like I was telling you, Ed Sheeran should like hire him and just like take his songs.
And it's Pettersen, right?
Is that it?
I think it's Pettersen.
Once you type in, it'll be good. And this song is called "The Puppet." It's quite good. So we'll go off that on the outro. Mike, thanks for joining us,
again,
man.
Mike.
Thanks, dudes. Really appreciate you guys having me on, and I'll talk to you guys about bringing you on the Doggy Juice Pod at some point as well.
Oh, that'd be dope. And also, if you come across any gambling,
any sure things,
any sure things, be sure to just send us a quick message.
Will do.
You don't have to confirm that. Nah, tease it.
Sounds good,
right,
guys.
man.
Thanks
See
for
you,
having me
brother.
on. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks again, Mike. Bye now.
See ya.
Cheers.
Sinking in the drinks again, getting what we said before. I will try to pretend that nothing ever happened, but what we see infuses me, despite the synchronicity. The only thing I didn't need was how you handled everything. It's not that I meant for this to be one chance, that we were so lucky, and all of it was just a misunderstanding. So I'll wait for the day when you come back this way, missing me again. None of this was my concern until you tried to let me burn. And slowly I disintegrate. I'm more surprised you didn't learn that I am not a puppet for you to toss along the floor.